In last month's office hours, February, I gave LinkedIn basics, and Melanie is going to the next level. There's so much to know about LinkedIn. We're not going to cover everything, certainly not today. Maybe we'll do more next time, but we're going to do a little bit beyond the basics to get the most out of your own LinkedIn profile. So, Melanie, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, so I'm going to unpin myself. And there is Melanie. I want to say thank you, Melanie Deardorff, Melanie the marketer, for offering to do this, offering to share what you've learned. So you're going to share your screen.
Am I sharing it now? Can you see it?
Almost. There we go. Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Thank you for letting me share this. I'm Melanie Deardorff. I'm in the Phoenix area and I'm a marketing consultant. And as Elise mentioned, there's a lot to learn about LinkedIn. I've used it I looked the other day, it looks like I've had the account for 13 years. So I've definitely used it off and on that time. There were times during, when I was working in corporate America where I would use it more actively when I was looking for jobs. And I think a lot of people do that, where they kind of go in and out of LinkedIn depending on their interests. But as we know from what Elise preaches, is that LinkedIn is a great tool for us to use when we're running our businesses. So I had 20 originally, but it was too long. So 10 tips that I wanted to share with you about how to use LinkedIn, kind of take your activities to the next level. They cover categories of your profile, what you're sharing on LinkedIn, how to keep in touch with your contacts, and then just a tip about notifications, because that's the best way to see what's happening on LinkedIn. Okay, so the first one here, I wanted to talk about just contact information. I do a lot of outreach on LinkedIn, and I'm surprised to see that people do not fill out all their contact info. Now, you can see on mine here, admittedly, I have my address. Not everybody likes sharing their address. I don't mind. I just filled it in when I noted it was a field. But I've seen people who do not have their phone numbers there. And I like having my phone number here, and I like being able to see people's phone numbers and email addresses, because I do, as I mentioned, I'm reaching out a lot on LinkedIn. Sometimes I'm going to lunch with someone and I need to double check their phone number quickly. So having the contact information filled out completely, I'd encourage that, because it gives people an additional way to contact you. Here are 3 people I contacted recently on LinkedIn, and you can see column 1, 2, and 3 here. People, fill out different information. This first gentleman here, Tom, he just kind of has some of the basics. His business partner, Joe, had more information, including his birthday. And then here's a person named Tanya that I connected with a couple weeks ago. I saw that she linked to several different websites, including her portfolio page and her blog page. So not necessarily different websites, but different parts of her website. And then here, she must be really active on Twitter, because she has 3 Twitter accounts. So that was interesting to see. So the takeaway here is just give people more ways to connect with you, and including social media. And that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, the services area. You can see the arrow here pointing to that. Services is a newer thing that was added to LinkedIn, I want to say within the last year or so. I remember talking about it in our small group last year, and not everyone had it. So this is my suggestion here, is to fill out the services section if you have that on your profile, so people have more ways to understand what you do. And I believe these are all categories that LinkedIn has already set up. So you'll have to kind of scroll alphabetically or type in some keywords and see if LinkedIn recognizes that as a service. You find this on your profile. Hopefully you know how to edit your profile, but you find this is what the section looks like. Services provided. So you click the little plus, you add a service. It could be copywriting, graphic design, etc. So again, with this tip, it's giving people more ways to connect with what you do and to understand what you're all about. And also think about the fact that you might call something a certain thing, but they might call it something else. Maybe you say copywriting and they say writing. So the more variants you can include, I believe you get up to 10. You can add 10 services that describe what you do. All right, moving right along to point 3. Hope I'm not talking too fast here, but I am a fast talker. One thing that I like to do on LinkedIn is since I go into my account and optimize my profile, sometimes I change things, add things. I don't like it when it broadcasts all those little housekeeping updates to my network. So if you get where I'm going with this, you might want to check your settings, your privacy settings and your notifications to see what your network is seeing on your activities. So if you see here where the first arrow, there's my little face on LinkedIn, and you click the caret there and you go to settings and privacy. You scroll all the way down, and in this one section here that says share job changes, education changes, etc. I think the default is yes, and I have it turned off to no once I realized a couple years ago that this was a feature, because I don't really care to tell people when I might have added a new profile shot or a headshot, or if I decide to change something on some of my employment history. So I would also encourage you to take a look at this entire page of settings and notifications, because there may be some things there that LinkedIn chose on your behalf, and maybe you're not comfortable with how those are. So check your, this specifically is about how to turn off profile updates, but you might want to turn things on that are already, set to not share. Okay, we already kind of covered the takeaway there. If you don't want to bombard your network with these type of housekeeping updates, turn off the profile updates. Number 4, this is kind of a fun one. So hashtags on LinkedIn are fairly new. I think they came out in 2018. And they are a nice way of categorizing your content, just like hashtags are on other platforms like Instagram and Twitter. So here's an example of a post I did a month ago where I was talking about, I shared an article that another company wrote on typography factoids that I thought was pretty darn interesting. And when I shared it on LinkedIn, I took the time to find some hashtags that could go along with it so I could help broadcast this update beyond the normal distribution, I guess you could say. So you can see I picked 4 hashtags there. And I wanted to show you on this next screen here how LinkedIn lets you know how many people are using that hashtag or following that hashtag. And I didn't check this till I was preparing this talk, but as you can see here, hashtag typography, that has 29,000 people following, which means they have found that hashtag in the search bar, just like you search for someone's name, and they click the button that says follow. So now LinkedIn will sporadically send me updates on people who are using hashtag typography. You can see the other ones I chose too. Much smaller, hashtag type design, typeface, TypeScript. I don't even remember picking that until I looked at my post again, but that had 5,000 followers. So this is just a way for you to categorize content that you're sharing so that it gets more, get this out of the way here, so that it gets a little bit more attention and it helps people know what your content's about. Hashtags are a good thing to use. So
Hey Melanie, this is Gigi. Can I just ask you a quick question?
sure.
I missed where you go to look to find
Hashtags?
how many followers each. I know how to hashtag, but how do you go to find how many followers are using a hashtag?
If you go in the search bar in LinkedIn, just like if you were looking up someone's name and you type in hashtag typography, once that comes up, you'll see it'll say follow, but it also says the number of people. And I forget if you click into it first, then it'll say 25,000 followers, or if it shows you right there. So for me, I like to use a variety of hashtags, especially on Instagram, big, large and small hashtags. So it's not bad to use a small one. Small ones might give you different visibility with a different audience, especially on Instagram. LinkedIn, there's not a lot of research right now on how effective the hashtags are, but hashtags are something that LinkedIn is experimenting with and doing even more of. So really I think every single post I post on LinkedIn now, I add a couple hashtags. And for me, I like putting them down below my comment. Some people prefer them to be in line. I just sort of like the streamlined look of having them hidden down below, because they're really more for search versus the person that read that post. They need to see what what hashtags I use. So I'm a fan of hiding them below, but some people like them in the body copy. All right. Yeah, sure. Moving right along. Next point, number 5 is don't forget to tag people and companies to give credit and get their attention. This is something that's been around forever on LinkedIn, so it's not new, but I still see a lot of people who don't tag companies and people. This is just an example of a post that I did for an executive. I post some things on her LinkedIn page from time to time, and she spoke at an event. And so Dataversity there is the name of the event company or the education company. So I tagged them, and that means that their social media manager or whoever is looking at the Dataversity company page, they will see that Kelly O'Neill tagged them. So it's really just a way for you to give credit to people or acknowledge your network, your people that you're sharing their content. Here's a couple more examples. This person, Paul, Elise and I know him. He does a great job of tagging both people and companies on his LinkedIn updates. And you can see he's also using hashtags there too. He tagged a person, this Kim Robbins, that he spoke with on a interview, and also the company that she worked for. And a LinkedIn user will be able to put their cursor over Kim's name and this Lystritz Advanced Tech Corp and get a little pop-up that'll show their name and the company name and where it's located, things like that. And of course, if you click into one of these hyperlinks, you'll be able to go right to that person's personal profile or their company profile. The one down here, oops, my screen is actually chopping it off here, but this is an example of someone else. I'm working with this person on some blog posts, and she posted this herself on LinkedIn, but evidently of the 4 people that she talks about in her blog post, Layla, Siobhan, etc., she could only find 2 of them that have a LinkedIn account. So she did kind of a mixed bag here. Some people were just referenced by name. Other people, she found their LinkedIn profile and mentioned them. So I would just encourage you, if you're not doing that, think about the content, who's writing it, or if you're sharing someone else's content, do they have a company name you could tag, their individual name? Are there people in your article? Maybe you're sharing your own blog post, but you interviewed 3 people. So think about, tagging their names here too. And my point here is just kind of have a strategy behind everything you do with LinkedIn. You're probably super busy like we all are. Spending time on LinkedIn takes minutes away from your day. So why not have a strategy behind everything that you share? Okay, number 6. This is something I use almost every day, especially when I'm going to LinkedIn where I want to connect with or get up to date on somebody that I am connected to, or maybe connect with a new person. So here's Paul again. So this is the activity section on your profile. And if it's not enabled, I have run across a couple people where it's not turned on, check your settings and remedy that, because this is a great way for you to look up someone on LinkedIn and see what they're doing. You can see if they're very active on LinkedIn, or they haven't posted anything forever or liked anything forever. But Paul, he's very active on LinkedIn. So if I want to catch up with Paul and see what he's talking about on LinkedIn, I'll go to his profile, I'll scroll down the page to activity, and I'll click in to see all. You can see it here over right above here. Once I go in there, I have different views that I can toggle back and forth between to see what Paul's doing on LinkedIn. I can choose all activity, which is on the left-hand side here, and I can see everything that he liked, commented on, etc. If I go to this other view where I just click post, I can see what Paul is sharing on LinkedIn. So he's very active on it. So it's no surprise that he has posts that are dated, within the last week or so. So this is just a good way for me to see what people are doing and think about, like, hey, I could reach out to Paul and say, hey, I saw that you did another podcast interview. That's very cool. Congratulations. So it's really just more, keeping up with people on social media. We don't need to emphasize that. Let's go to number 7 here, how to personalize your connection messages. This is something Elise has mentioned before. Every LinkedIn quote expert mentions this, but it's still, I think a lot of people still skip this step. So when you find someone on LinkedIn that you want to connect with, and you click, what does it say here? Connect. I don't know if you can see it. It's grayed out there. When you click connect, this little box will pop up. One says add note. One option says add a note. One says send now. There's still a lot of people clicking send now because I can't tell you how many LinkedIn invites I get where people don't tell me the context of why they want to connect. So on this next screenshot here, you'll see this was, I think, this week or late last week. I reached out to 2 different people because I was getting ready to be on a conference call with them. And I just used the same message, but I changed it for each person. So I used, the personalized option. I said, "Hi, Tom, it's Melanie, the marketer. We're getting ready to talk on Zoom. Would you like to connect?" And then his business partner, Joe, I quickly jumped over and found Joe's profile, and I said the same thing to Joe. So even though they were joining a call with me in a few minutes, just in case they didn't, they might know other Melanies, they might be like, "Who's this person again?" So by putting a message there and explaining why I'm reaching out, it helps them know that I took that extra step, but it also gives them a reference point. As Dale Carnegie said, show a genuine interest in people. So take the time to write a custom message. Number 8, and I have 10 tips here, so we're almost done. Number 8, this is something that I didn't use for quite a while on LinkedIn, but it comes in really handy today. There's a way that you can find or cancel your pending connection requests if you wanted to do that. So if you see the little icon there that says network, my network, click that and you'll see no pending invitations. Well, that's not actually true because I have a lot of pending invitations, and I don't like it that LinkedIn says that wording because it's a little confusing. So once you see this screen here, no pending invitations, and the word manage over there on the right-hand side, click to manage. You'll get another view, which is also kind of confusing, where you'll see a bunch of zeros, 0, 0, 0, all the way across. If you click sent, you'll go to a screen, and I noticed that I had 10 people who hadn't responded to my LinkedIn invitation. And a couple of you on the call I connected with on the last office hours, and you were also on here, but I shortened it, so I didn't want to out you. But what you can see here is the date. So I can see that I reached out to Jill a week ago, and I wanted to interview her for one of my clients. So when I popped open this little description here, I was reminded of what I sent Jill. So about a week ago, I tried to get her to connect with me on LinkedIn because it was the best way that I could get her contact information. And I said, "I'd like to interview you for a blog." And then on and on down to 10 people. So you can withdraw if you notice the little withdraw here. If I decided I just got Jill's email address from another source. So maybe I don't want to connect with her since she's my client's contact. I could click withdraw and actually take away my request. So that's just a little tip. If you don't know who you connected with, you can kind of use it as a mini CRM. You can look back in there and see, like, who did I connect with, who accepted, who hasn't, etc.
Excuse me, Melanie?
Yes.
Laura, yeah. Are you able to then try and connect with them again, or do you still only have one chance?
No, you could withdraw it and do it again.
Okay.
And I think sometimes, and I'll mention notifications here, but even email preferences on LinkedIn, you might check your settings and see what you have it set up, because I remember I used to get emails every time from LinkedIn for every update. And then I turned it off so that I didn't have as many. I do still get updates from LinkedIn when they're telling me that somebody, I guess, sent me a DM maybe, but check your email settings, because you'd be surprised to see there's quite a bit of flexibility there on how much or how little you want to get contacted by LinkedIn. And I think that's what happened. People kind of zone out on LinkedIn for a while if they're not using it heavy duty, and they just may not realize that there's a bunch of requests hanging out there for them. 2 more tips, number 9 and 10. What I like to do sometimes is I search through people's connections to see if I'm connected to anyone, especially because I'm newer to Arizona. I've lived here 2.5 years, grew up and lived in Kansas City my whole life. So when I came here, it became really important for me to use LinkedIn even more and to get to know more people in the big old Phoenix metro. So what I like to do, this is the gentleman I contacted with a few days ago, or connected with, excuse me, who we were on going to be on a call together. He was reaching out and asking me if I could write some content for his new website that's targeted on helping small businesses. So once I connected with him, I looked to see what mutual connections we have. So you can see down below there where it says 10 mutual connections, which I was surprised to see because I don't know a ton of people here yet. So when I clicked into it though, I could see different people. Let's see, this view here shows not just my city, but it shows everyone that he and I have a shared connection with. Some of the names surprised me. Some of the people I don't know super well. One guy was in my networking group that we're connected, and he apparently knows Joe as well. And then I saw that I actually have one client on here who knows Joe. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But what I did was I wanted to see not just who we have a shared connection anywhere in the United States, because I know this gentleman moved from California. I wanted to see who in Phoenix is connected to Joe. So you can see here where I went into the LinkedIn search, and it still has Joe's name here. We're first connections right now, and I clicked the button that says Phoenix to narrow my search query. I almost clicked financial services. You can kind of see down below there has a dark box around it, but I unchecked it. And then when I did that search query, then I saw, oh, okay, these are the 6 people who live in the Phoenix area that both Joe and I are connected to. And so I'll do that periodically to see if any shared connections. Again, it's another way of bridging the gap between kind of a warm stranger to someone who you might actually go to coffee with. Who do we know? And what's the relationship there? Now, one thing I don't like about LinkedIn, because you see my little boo right here, I wanted to see what second degree connections that Joe has who live in Phoenix, because maybe he knows someone that I need to know and I'm not connected with yet. But when I did this, I was reminded that LinkedIn will not let you do a very robust search without you paying for the LinkedIn Premium, which I want to say, well, it says reactivate for free. I'm skeptical, but usually it's like 1 free month and then you start paying every month. So LinkedIn, not a fan of their search, but there is some functionality there that you might not be taking advantage of today that I wanted to show. And I have also been known to, especially if someone just has a couple hundred connections, I've been known to just go through every single one of their connections, quickly scanning down my monitor and going like, what city, or I'll look at the names, I'll look at the job titles. Are there graphic designers in the area that I might need to know? Are there other marketers or writers? So LinkedIn search, you can do some things with it, but it's not 100% perfect. And the last tip is don't forget to check your notifications, especially if you don't get a lot of emails from LinkedIn. Above, you can see my little snippet there from my LinkedIn page. I was caught up with notifications, so there was nothing showing up there in that gray bar. But the executive that I post some things on her page is Kelly. She has 2 pending connection requests and 16 messages that might be of interest to her. So this is how I really keep up on all the activity on LinkedIn that matters to me. And unfortunately with notifications, you get a lot of, I would call it junk for LinkedIn, where they are saying that, trending now, the American middle class is not saying I do anymore. Here's why. Why I would be interested in that, I don't know, but LinkedIn wants to show me what they think is interesting. But as I scrolled down the notifications the other day, I saw that Scott Henderson, which I think you can see his name down below and also up above here, he responded to, he's someone that I used to work with, and he acknowledged a post that I wrote. So I wanted to make sure that I saw that. And so I clicked into it, and then I think I liked or commented on his post back, that he did to me. So I like using notifications really every single day when I log in, so I can get caught up on not just little news like this that LinkedIn wants to surface to me, but I also want to see, are people commenting on my post? Did they comment on something that I wrote about their blog post? It's just a way to keep the conversation going, because somebody may ask you a question like, hey, Melanie, you mentioned that about typography, what's your favorite typeface? And if I don't answer it, it looks rude, and it looks like that I'm not paying attention to LinkedIn. So especially if you ask a question to your audience, or if you're expecting any kind of comments back, you want to keep looking at your posts for the next few days and weeks, just to make sure that you're not missing a good conversation or connection opportunity. So the takeaway there is just get in the habit of viewing your notifications. And I think that's it. Sorry that was so.
Thank you. No, it was awesome. There are thank yous and awesomes in the chat bar for you, Melanie, and people asking if you will share the PowerPoint.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that would be great. Yes, people clapping. Thank you.
Can I give a shout out? I wanted to thank Jill Francis Gray. She's on the call right now. JFG. I love that. JFG. She let me test this on her the other day. Her feedback was good. You could slow down a little bit. So
No,
So
but there's just so much you could say. So we're
I
definitely gonna have to
know.
do
So
another
thank you,
one.
Jill. Thanks, Jill, for letting me take your time earlier this week for this.
Awesome.